Hello, this is Pixel Freak, and we are doing part 23 of the Final Fantasy Dimensions walkthrough. So we are in Pirate Island, in the caves here. We're on our way down to go see the boss, who is the captain of the pirate guys that we kicked the crap out of back in the last video. So throughout this little mini dungeon here, there are not a lot of enemies that are really worth mentioning. Nothing really spectacular happens here. There's a few treasure boxes, I think, as you go through, but for the most part, you just need to get down to the bottom, and you need to beat down the boss. For this video also, there's only about 5 or 6 fights, I think, through the dungeon, so I opted to just go ahead and leave them in there so you can get a look at what the enemies are here. This is another decent place to grind if you'd like to, but my selected place to grind at this point in the game is on the other side of this dungeon. After you beat the pirate boss, which, big surprise, he's the boss here, you go to a new town, I think Rusalk or something like that. Rusalka, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, once you get to that town, the field out there is a really good place to grind, especially because there's some new items there in that town, and you're going to want to pick those up. You're going to need something like, I think it's 20k gold or something like that to fill up your inventory with all the new items. So it's going to take quite a bit of grinding just to get that amount of money, but you're also going to want to do that just to kind of level up some new jobs. So in this playthrough, these characters, I've actually chosen some jobs already. With Dusk, I've chosen to go White Mage, and pretty much just White Mage exclusively. I know I've kind of dabbled in some other things, but he's pretty much just a White Mage. Sarah is going both Black Mage and Summoner at the moment, and I'm not sure if I'm going to change the way I do that, but I really like the combination of a Black Mage Summoner. She'll probably also pick up another magic-based skill as I go through the game. Right now, Soul is going all Monk, and Aegis is going all Warrior. There are a few enemies here, as you can see. There's a little bit of poison going on here. There's a little bit of poison in this dungeon. Make sure you got some antidotes, or at least a White Mage to cure it. I often will opt to do items over spells, just because I like to conserve the MP as much as I possibly can. At this point, a little bit of Poisona. It's not gonna really tap your MP too much. So if you want to go about it that way, go about it that way. I always keep a healthy amount of items to cure various status ailments on me. But if you've been watching the walkthrough up to this point, or the Let's Play, whatever you want to call this, you'd know that already. You'd know that I often go to the store and make sure that I have ample of anything available. I'm also the type of guy that when I'm playing through a game, if I get items like elixirs or ethers, things like that, things that are of high value or are priceless and very potent, but are consumable, I will usually save them for either a situation that I'm having a hard time with and I can't level my way out of, or just the last boss. Generally, I don't want to use those items, and it's something in my head. I think it might be the hoarder that's deep inside me somewhere. Says, you know, don't use that item. You don't know when you're going to need it later. And so I'll just save these items till the very end. And sometimes in RPGs, this makes the boss fights very cheap. Because if you save all your really high-end items, you basically have infinite health. It just goes right, you just go right through the boss, tear right through him. Other times, that's not that big of an advantage. I'm not sure what that'll be like in this game, but it's pretty clear that I'm going to have a nice little cache of elixirs by the time I finish the game. So here with Sarah, you can see I'm leveling up. I think I go to 10 with the Black Mage too. I go 10 on both. Oh, I haven't yet. I picked the first 10 on the Summoner, and I've already... Oh, look, I already completed those. Summoner is one of those unfortunate jobs that when you level it up real far, real fast, you end up with basically skills you can't use, because as you level up, it's like now you can use, level 5 summon magic. Well, you have to have summon to do that, so it's kind of pointless. But some of the abilities and some of the skills that are unlocked in there are not contingent on the spells. And so, like for instance, level 10 for pretty much every job is an ability slot. So it's worth it to go, at least 10. If you're going to level up, if you're going to put any job points into anything, you should probably try to go to 10 at least, just to get that ability slot. Because those ability slots towards the end of the game, those are going to be invaluable. You're going to want as many of those as you can, so you can mix up your jobs and mix up your skills and make your guys the best amalgamation of job character at the end of the game. The best that you can possibly create. I'm trying to stick my guys with kind of a motif, like for instance my Sarah character is going to be offensive magic, and Dusk will probably end up being some mix of healing and either status ailment or defensive jobs. So I might actually take Dusk and do like warrior as well, or some sort of casting, maybe even a red mage, who knows, and then play it that way so that I can have healing spells and warrior or lots of defense or something like that, It just depends on what's available at the end. I can't remember exactly how I had planned it out. So when you get down here to the bottom of the cave, it's actually like a town. There's all kinds of amenities here. I'm not sure if there's stores or not. There are items to be had if you want to pick them up. And then at one point you will reach the boss. So I think for now I'm just exploring. I can't remember exactly what I do here. Seems like the boss is just south of here. I guess we'll have to wait and see. No, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, so there are some items here, unlike the pirate ship from before where there was no items on the ship. If memory serves correctly though, there's nothing of that much value in any of the little crates and stuff here. I don't remember if there's actually an armor weapon shop here. We'll have to see. I'll stumble across if I need to. So as I was saying before, I always like to make sure I have a healthy dose of all items. I'll pick a few up here. Just be careful while you're here, how much money you're spending, because keep in mind that you are going to need several $1,000s in the next town for weapons and items. Yeah, more crap. Eye drops. That's worth, I think, like 50. So this is the boss once you decide to go up and fight him. Port Capo. Alright, and then he sicks his little guys on you right away, and you get a back attack. Much like the fight from the port, this is pretty easy. The difference here is that everybody's backwards, so if you saw this coming, you can actually flip your guys around, but I think the pirate boss fight is directly after this. So if you flip your guys around the wrong way, if you flip them around backwards, they're going to be in the wrong order for the next fight. So just because you see it this way doesn't mean you can really plan for it too much. Just be ready to flip your guys on row if you have to. I think for me, I didn't, just because these guys are pretty weak and they go down pretty quick. I would just recommend an all-out offensive strategy here. Yeah. Depending on who you're using. I think Aura Blast can be used at full effect from the back row since it's a projectile. Pretty sure. So casting a whole bunch of Aura Blasts here is going to make you a little bit weaker when you're fighting the Pirate Boss, which he also is really not that big of a deal. He's a pretty big pushover. Alright, so take care of those 4 easy guys. And then you get to go against Bike. Which, funny thing is I'm pretty sure the Pirate Boss in Final Fantasy 1 that I was mentioning in the previous video is also named Bike. So this is kind of a homage, almost, to that early scene in Final Fantasy 1. If you've never played Final Fantasy 1, I highly recommend it. The only caveat there is, if you're going to play Final Fantasy 1, you should play one of the remake versions. Playing it on iOS or Android too isn't exactly the best experience. Unfortunately, the port they did from other mobile devices over to Android and iOS wasn't the best port. I wasn't extremely happy with it. Not like this particular game. Dimensions went over pretty well, I think, and Final Fantasy 3 was also ported very, very well. Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2, I felt the kind of definitive versions were on the PSP and on the PS1. Those were both very good versions. I think there was also a Game Boy Advance version, but I'm not quite as thrilled about the Game Boy Advance versions of Final Fantasy games. They're usually okay. They're just not the definitive versions for me. For instance, Final Fantasy 6, which is the US 3 for those US listeners. That version actually had a lot of edits done to it for the Game Boy Advance version. Some of the stuff to tone it down a little bit. I think they were trying to look at more of a child or a younger crowd, a younger audience. And there was a scene particularly that comes to mind where there was a death. And there's a lot of stuff that was changed about that scene to make it a little more child or young friendly. Stuff like that. I played the Game Boy Advance version a little bit. I wasn't too thrilled about it. I think the definitive version on that game is definitely still the Super NES. But for Final Fantasy 1, I really liked the one that was out on PS1. There were some extra dungeons that were added to the PSP version, and I do believe the PSP version is the one that was ported over to iOS and Android. And Android got a port of a port from iOS to Android. So the Android version, I feel, really is just really bad. There's really horrible black borders because it's trying to conform to resolutions that are standard on old iPhones, and it just didn't look real great. The controls on a tablet were, it's not real great. I wasn't real thrilled about it. But I did play it on the PSP, and I was really happy with it there, and so I think that's kind of the definitive version. I guess the PS1 version is also pretty good. I played through that one as well. I wouldn't recommend playing it on the NES, just because the NES had, at the time it was a good game, but the NES had so many drawbacks. For instance, if you told your character to attack an enemy and that enemy was killed before your character got a chance to attack, it would go ineffective. You wouldn't just default to hitting somebody else. Little things like that. And the graphics were really just really subpar. I mean, even for NES days, it was pretty subpar for Final Fantasy. I still like the game. I still play it myself, but if it's one of those games that if you didn't play it at the time, it's really hard to go back and play it now. It's just not, it's not there. So I know I didn't comment too much on that boss fight, but there wasn't a whole lot to comment on. You get some job points, as you just saw. A couple gold. But yeah, it was a pretty easy fight. I think I unfortunately had my white mage get dropped briefly, just mostly because I wasn't paying attention. But aside from that, that's it. So I think that is the end of this video. On the next video, I walk out of here and head on my way. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, this has been Pixel Freak.